On a cold, rainy day in March of 1841, William Henry Harrison stood on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, ready to deliver his inaugural address as the 9th President of the United States. At 68 years old, Harrison was the oldest person ever elected to the presidency at the time. His election victory had been hard-fought and symbolic, a triumph for the newly formed Whig Party and a challenge to the political dominance of the Democratic Party under Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren. Yet, what began as a moment of triumph for Harrison and his supporters would soon turn into a tragedy that left the nation reeling. Harrison would hold the office for just 32 days, the shortest presidency in U.S. history, a record that still stands today. But to understand how such an experienced figure met such an untimely and dramatic fate, we need to trace his journey, his rise to power, and the peculiar circumstances surrounding his brief time in office. William Henry Harrison was born in 1773 into one of Virginia's most prominent families. His father, Benjamin Harrison, was a signer of the Declaration of Independence and a 3-time governor of Virginia. Growing up, William was surrounded by revolutionary ideals and the concept of public service. Initially, Harrison intended to pursue a career in medicine, but after his father's death, financial pressures led him to join the military instead. This decision would prove to be life-changing. Harrison's military career began in the Northwest Indian War, where he served as an aide to General Anthony Wayne. He played a key role in the Battle of Fallen Timbers in 1794, which secured American control over much of the Ohio Valley. Harrison's reputation as a capable leader and strategist grew, and he eventually became the governor of the Indiana Territory, where he negotiated treaties with Native American tribes, often under dubious circumstances. His role in expanding U.S. territory made him a figure of national prominence, but it also deepened tensions with Native Americans. In 1811, Harrison achieved lasting fame at the Battle of Tippecanoe. As tensions with native tribes escalated, Harrison led a force against the Confederation formed by the Shawnee leader Tecumseh and his brother Tenskwatawa, known as the Prophet. The American victory at Tippecanoe was far from decisive in the long term, but it was a public relations triumph for Harrison. The nickname Old Tippecanoe would follow him for the rest of his life, and the battle became a key part of his political brand. After serving as a general in the War of 1812 and participating in the Battle of the Thames, where Tecumseh was killed, Harrison transitioned to a political career. He served as a congressman, senator, and ambassador, but by the 1820s his influence had waned and he retired to his farm in Ohio. However, his military reputation and folksy appeal made him an ideal candidate for the Whig Party, which was searching for a figurehead to challenge the Democrats. The 1840 presidential campaign was one of the most colorful and unusual in American history. The Whigs positioned Harrison as a man of the people, contrasting him with the incumbent president, Martin Van Buren, who they depicted as an out-of-touch elitist. This portrayal was ironic, given that Harrison came from a wealthy background while Van Buren had risen from humble beginnings. Still, the campaign was a masterclass in marketing. Slogans like Tippecanoe and Tyler too, referring to Harrison and his running mate John Tyler, dominated rallies, and the Whigs organized parades, distributed log cabin-themed memorabilia, and served hard cider to reinforce Harrison's image as a rugged, relatable frontiersman. The strategy worked. Harrison won the election in a landslide, securing 234 electoral votes to Van Buren's 60. But while the campaign was a resounding success, the challenges of governing lay ahead. The nation was still reeling from the panic of 1837, an economic depression that had caused widespread unemployment and financial instability. Harrison faced high expectations to deliver solutions and restore confidence in the government. On March 4th, 1841, the day of his inauguration, the weather in Washington, D.C. was miserable. It was cold, wet, and windy, but Harrison, eager to prove his vitality despite his advanced age, refused to wear a hat or coat. He delivered the longest inaugural address in U.S. history, a speech lasting nearly 2 hours and spanning over 8,000 words. The address was filled with references to classical philosophy and detailed his vision for the presidency, emphasizing limited government and moral leadership. It was an impressive display of intellect and stamina, but it came at a cost. Shortly after his inauguration, Harrison began to feel unwell. Initially, his symptoms resembled a common cold, but they quickly escalated. Within days, he was bedridden with fever, chills, and a persistent cough. His condition was diagnosed as pneumonia, a serious illness made worse by the limited medical knowledge of the time. Doctors subjected Harrison to treatments that seem archaic by modern standards, including bloodletting, the application of leeches, and blistering. These interventions likely weakened him further. Harrison's health continued to decline, and on April 4, 1841, just 32 days after taking office, he died. His death marked the first time a sitting US president had died in office, plunging the nation into uncharted territory. There was no clear constitutional guidance on presidential succession at the time, leading to uncertainty about the role of the vice president. John Tyler, Harrison's running mate, stepped in and declared himself president rather than merely acting president. Tyler's decisive action set a critical precedent for the peaceful transfer of power which remains a cornerstone of American democracy. The brevity of Harrison's presidency has often overshadowed the remarkable life he led before taking office. While his 32 days as president are remembered mostly for their abrupt end, his legacy as a military leader, territorial governor, and a symbol of early American resilience endures. Harrison's death also served as a wake-up call about the importance of health, especially for leaders in demanding roles. His decision to stand in the rain and deliver a lengthy inaugural address, while meant to demonstrate strength, ultimately illustrated the fragility of even the most robust figures. Today, William Henry Harrison's story remains a fascinating chapter in American history, a tale of triumph and tragedy, ambition and misfortune. His legacy is a reminder of how quickly the course of history can change and the enduring impact of those who rise to meet its challenges, even briefly.